another extraordinary day in South Africa's political and economic history. Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan, along with former colleagues from SARS, charged with fraud in relation to the early retirement of Ivan Pillay, then a Deputy Commissioner at SARS. And it's a complicated process, but what we're seeing happening is the currency losing ground against major international currencies, down about 3.5% against the greenback, down sharply against the pound, also down sharply against the euro. Pravin Gordhan has been summoned to appear in court on the 2nd of November. I'm Bruce Whitfield. I'm joined this afternoon by Adesiba Motata, who's the Chief Economist at Investment Solutions, as well as Anti Pai, Economist at Nascent Advisory Research, and also with us the RMB currency strategist John Cairns. And we hope that we'll chat to Alan Mukoki from the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, plus as well anybody who can join us online this afternoon. We'll get as many views as we can to get some clarity as what is happening in currency markets, what's been happening as a result of a collapsing rand on equity markets, but also what are the broader ramifications of the decision by the National Prosecuting Authority, Sean Abrahams, the man who runs that institution, assuring South Africa that the charges against Pravin Gordhan are not politically motivated, and getting quite tetchy about that fact as well. Immediately, John Cairns from RMB, we saw the rand pull back very, very sharply. It settled quite comfortably between 3% lower against the pound and the euro, and 3.5% weaker against the dollar. Does it get worse?
I think it should. I mean, a 3% move, Bruce, we're not talking about a lot. We're talking about potential arrest or any change of the finance minister. I think the rand should be pricing in a lot more risk. I agree with you. Yeah, I think we'll have to wait and see how it goes, but I'd definitely be short the rand at this stage.
It all comes down, to the severity of the charge against the finance minister. I kind of looked at the charge sheet and I thought to myself, if the National Prosecuting Authority, the best they can find against the finance minister is what they regard as a dodgy retirement deal and the re-employment of Ivan Pillay, Pravin Gordhan's lawyers are going to have a field day on the 2nd of November.
Well, I guess the issue, though, is probably that they actually just distract him, I suppose, if we believe what all our political analysts have been telling us. So the point is probably that it doesn't really matter what you find, as long as you find something that will stick for now. And we can, I mean, look, any charge could go on forever. So even if it's more, right, how long does it take us to get to court and keep going like this for quite some time? So anything would have stuck. I mean, the things that couldn't stick, I suppose, in the short term, we put aside and we thought, look, let's find something that can stick for now. So anything would have worked.
I mean, let's look at this. I mean, in December, when Nhlanhla Nene was fired, one would have thought the rumours have been around since the Monday, and we saw a list of people appear that could be fired by the president. On that list was the name of Nhlanhla Nene, and many of us, I'm sure people around this table, might have thought, as I did at that time, what kind of idiot would fire a performing finance minister? Then we saw the finance minister fired, and then we saw the threats just before the budget in February, and then it died down. We saw the threats emerge again a month ago. And today, actual charges being laid against the finance minister. Is there a conspiracy at play, I wonder?
Chipping away at confidence as we continue. It does look like there are issues. It doesn't look like it's a good relationship that exists between number one of the country and the Minister of Finance, and that is chipping away confidence, which is undesired. Emerging market countries get punished disproportionately when they have fiscal mismanagement. This could equate to fiscal mismanagement if we get a situation where, as these things are happening around budgets, that you get surprises in the budget that changes the course that South Africa has been on since 1994.
It's interesting that you make that point, because Pravin Gordhan was speaking at an event earlier on today as the news broke. Now, what happened early this morning is that a policeman apparently arrived at the National Treasury looking for Pravin Gordhan, was told the minister was still at home, went to the minister's home and delivered a summons to him to appear in court. Pravin Gordhan went to an event, a scheduled event, where he was slated to speak. He participated in that event and made absolutely no mention of the charges pending against him until the news broke. That news broke at about 11 o'clock this morning. This was the finance minister, Pravin Gordhan's immediate reaction to the NPA summons as social media went completely wild on the news.
There's been news spreading around that this entity called the Hawks are at it again. So I want you first to know from me what I know of, the little that I know about events this morning. Firstly, I get a call from my family to say that a Brigadier Kaba, uninvited, has appeared at my house to hand me summons. They know who my lawyer is. That firm of attorney has been interacting with them for months now. And one of the undertakings they gave is that when and if this day comes, they will approach the lawyer and make the necessary arrangements for me to receive any summons that they wish to receive. Not having found me at home, they proceed to go to the Treasury. And I'm not sure what has happened there. Given fiscal austerity, they might not have been given a cup of tea. My lawyers will issue a proper statement in a short while. But, ladies and gentlemen, you and the public need to once again ask yourselves, what is this matter that is so urgent? And I'll tell you what it is. That requires us as a country 15 days before the delivery of the medium-term budget policy statement. So you remember the last time it was just before and after the February budget. There's something attractive about budgets. I'm not sure what it is. So what is it about this country and some in this country, both at a political level and in the law enforcement agencies, who choose these times to do these things? When we've just come back telling all sorts of people, we're fine in South Africa. Yes, no, we have, gloomy growth, but we can see green shoots. We can see the economy growing. And our message to all sorts of investors and people who want to assess our economic performance and fiscal performance is that if you give us another year or so, we'll show you South Africa can change, South Africa can adapt, South Africa can produce results which will not require anybody to consider putting us into so-called junk territory, something that will benefit all South Africans, not just a few. So I expect I will be, at some stage, handed a summons to appear in court on, I believe, on the 2nd of November. A date has been set to collect my fingerprints. They've been in the system for a long time. I suppose they need to freshen it up in some way. But this is a moment when South Africans should really ask themselves, who are the hawks, or these few people in the hawks, really serving? Where do they get their political instructions from, and for what purpose? When all that we are trying to do within the Treasury is represent South Africa, make sure we manage its finances properly, present the best foot forward that we can on behalf of the country, and do that which is right, whether it is in respect of university fees, or more housing to be built, or more money to be made available for the right kind of procurement purposes, or anything that a normal treasury does in any normal country. So, looks like we're in for a bit of excitement as we go forward.
The Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, speaking earlier on today, the master of understatement, keeping a decent sense of humour about him in the face of extraordinary pressure. I got the order wrong. They went to the House first and then to the National Treasury, but they should know by now that the Finance Minister doesn't keep office hours. He's a hard-working kind of guy. But there's the Finance Minister calling into question the timing of this particular arrest and the fact that he's being charged just 15 days before the medium-term budget policy statement. It was at the budget in Cape Town where the Finance Minister last came under intense pressure, and South Africans, he suggests, Lesibo Motata, have got this fixation with the budget. What could it possibly be within the budget that could be used for political manipulation? It's beyond me.
You know, one wonders because there's conversation about huge deals. that could arrive.
Tina Jima Peterson this morning said that government couldn't afford the nuclear build. So what they're doing is they're passing that over to Eskom, and Eskom is going to carry it on its balance sheet. Now, the rumour is if Pravin Gordhan goes, that we get Brian Molefe into the National Treasury as Finance Minister. You would think that if this was being teed up as a big national purchase, the appointment of somebody like the Chief Executive of Eskom into the National Treasury, he's the guy who gave us the end of load shedding, so he can be trusted. He might do the sensible thing when it comes to nuclear, right?
Well, I suppose it's about the principle, it's in how it's done, and more importantly for investors, it's about the guarantees that goes behind that. As we stand, $36 billion are guarantees. The lion's share of that are towards Eskom. When we have a loan, there's always a covenant that needs to be written. And in it, there are guarantees that need to arrive for an investor to feel confident. Should there be a default, they can call on the capital, on the amounts, on interest and capital easily. And that will end up being the National Treasury. And that is where the focus for investors will be, that while we're sitting now at $36 billion, what is the number going to be going forward?
$36 billion at 14.50 to the US dollar is cheaper than at 15, 16 or 70 Kanti Pi. And also the bond market has just shown the risk rating of South Africa has just been elevated quite significantly. So any money you want to borrow, 36 billion or more at 14.50, 15 or 16 or 17 to the dollar, just become a whole lot more expensive to service, courtesy of this little game that played out this morning.
And not to mention every other project that is supposedly to come out of the budget, of course, and the money that we will be spending on infrastructure and everything else, because we import much of what we do. But I think one of the most devastating things that the minister has just said is that our legal and our prosecutorial services are subject to political manipulation.
No, they're not. Sean Abraham, no, be fair. Sean Abraham is the head of the NPA, and you wouldn't appoint somebody with forked tongue at the NPA, would you? He said there's no political manipulation. Correct yourself. Correct yourself.
And so when the minister, who has been going around everybody and telling guys this system is working, everything is being fixed, he's now admitted, actually, you know what? I was wrong. When I came to you in January, in February, in March, and I've been telling these stories as much as last week, that actually, our legal order is in place, that this institution is safe. Actually, that wasn't true.
It seemed so bizarre, didn't it, that the only thing that the 200 people who crowded into a room that wasn't big enough for them all in New York, all they wanted to know was, are you going to be arrested? And he played it down so strongly in New York because there was no logical process here, John Cairns, to the minister being arrested.
What we want to know now, and he didn't answer that in
his lawyers may this afternoon,
is what is the legal procedure for him having to resign if charges are brought against him? Because there is an parliamentary ethics code that he himself has signed, as far as I'm aware. There's an ANC ethics code.
Does that kick in on court day? Or does that kick in when a charge... Because anybody can file a charge against anybody else. Surely you would have to appear in court before the charge is formalized.
And jump in if you know more than me. But as far as I understand, having spoken just to some lawyers this morning, and they're certainly not experts in this matter, so we're still waiting for more advice, is that the charges are explicitly brought against him on the 2nd. So they're laid against him on the 2nd. So none of those codes of ethics, as I would understand it, apply now. So there's no legal reason why you would have to resign now. Obviously, it all changes after the 2nd. The other question we've asked the lawyers is, would these charges stand up in a court? Could the court just throw out the whole case? Again, we're not speaking to the experts, but it seems that it's unlikely that will happen. So charges will be formally brought.
Charges will be formally brought. But the charges now, what strikes me as odd is that we've got a time frame, an extended time frame. And it's a time frame that comes to court after the date of the medium-term budget policy statement. So at this rate, Pravin Gordhan stays in office, he stays in the National Treasury, he still delivers the medium-term budget policy statement, and then goes to court on the 2nd of November. The timing seems odd.
Something else, we've seen this movie before. Remember when the president was removed by Thabo Mbeki as deputy president, then there was no charge in front of him except he was associated. And so the president could still say, listen, you've got this thing coming up.
In the best interests of the country.
This thing is coming up. We know we need a stable economy. We can't all be tarnished. I would like you to step down while you go and face this thing so that we can sort things out.
There is the small matter of 783 other charges outstanding against the president himself.
Well, I don't know if he can fire himself. Yes.
We can have a go. We can have a go.
Bruce, you keep coming back to this issue. I just assume that it's coincidental that it comes before the budget. I don't see any manipulation there.
This is Pravin Gordhan's suggestion. It's Pravin Gordhan's suggestion.
No, but guys, I just think this is not characteristic of a country for the last 20 years have demonstrated such world-class leadership in most institutions. To erode a world institution like that, the National Treasury, in this manner, we're sitting here talking about things that are unthinkable.
It's unthinkable.
In my mind, this is actually unacceptable.
Yeah, Bruce, I want to argue with you on that. Sorry, on the budget point. So, I think what the minister was trying to get at is not that there was some conspiracy coming before the budget. It was rather that it's unfortunate that it keeps coming. It's what he says. It's about the image of the country. You know, I go around, I speak to a lot of companies in South Africa, and what I was seeing is an improvement in confidence. The rand has come back. You're starting to think maybe again, and now we get the shock. And Minister Gordhan's right. It comes just before the budget, just before the key event at the rating agency. It's very unfortunate, the timing. I think it's coincidental rather than political.
Okay, hypothetically, I'll put it back to you, John Cairns. The medium-term budget policy statement is in the works. There's a framework there. The President, because he's the President of the country, is being consulted as to what goes into the medium-term budget policy statement. He doesn't like what's in it, and he's pulling rank days before the medium-term budget policy statement.
Maybe.
That's another interpretation on it.
Perhaps it could be, yes.
But let's see, when you talk about great leadership, you talk about great institutions, you talk about people standing up and being counted. At the event where the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, was speaking earlier today, was also the Gauteng Premier, David Makhura. Now, the Gauteng ANC has little time for the President. David Makhura, I don't know if he's met the President since, but he was one of the only premiers in South Africa who had not had a regular meeting with the President. That was up until about 6 months ago. I don't know if things have changed since then. But David Makhura, the Premier of Gauteng, stood up at the same gathering where the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, had been speaking and voiced his unequivocal support for the Finance Minister.
I would like to take this opportunity to say something to you, Minister Gordhan. I as the Premier of Gauteng Province, on behalf of the government that I lead, without fear of contradiction, we believe in your leadership. We believe in your ethical leadership. And we believe in your ability, even as you face this moment, to continue to work hard, to do your best to steer our economy collectively with many South Africans, to steer our economy on the right path. This is not for anybody else, but for the people of our country. We want you to know that we are fully behind you. I know you, Comrade Pravin. You are an ethical leader. I will never say don't cooperate with the law enforcement agencies. You will go through that process. But as you go through that process, just remember that there is a people and a country to worry about. And that as you go through that, continue to do everything in your power with every iota of energy you have to continue to help us do those things that will help our economy recover. So I say this without doubt that many South Africans feel the same, and that many of you who are sitting here feel the same. So we're not making a statement about the Hawks. We're just making a statement about you.
The Gauteng Premier, David Makhura, unequivocal support. And that's all well and good. We can all sit around the fire and sing kumbaya to one another. The fact is that the power of the state is being unleashed on Pravin Gordhan. The power of the state, with all of the goodwill in the world, is a devastating tool in your arsenal if you're going to use it, Kantipai.
No, absolutely, and I think that is one of the biggest things, right? And I think this is why this is such a big thing for our democracy in particular, right? Because it actually, this one part that is so important when we think about it is that no democracy ever sustains something like this, where the legal instruments are actually used against individuals of power, because actually it suggests that this thing is not what we think it is supposed to be. And I think it's incredible. I mean, I agree with Lucy. It is so difficult to think this is actually the country we have.
You could think that the president may have been badly advised, misinformed, nuts, crazy, stupid, corrupt, whatever the situation was on the 9th of December last year, when in a fit of pique, his good friend and finance minister, his colleague, stood up against him on nuclear, or whatever the pushback was from Nhlanhla. You could think that you can do that once and make a mistake. Yeah. Hard to forgive, but hey, it's a mistake. Do it twice. It starts to look deliberate,
No, definitely, because there's inflows that we see, the lust for yield that is coming from the global investors, which is finding its shores at the JSE, in bonds mainly. It's an olive branch. Emerging markets get punished for fiscal and economic mismanagement. It has happened in South Korea, it has happened in Mexico, it has happened in Brazil. The list is endless. What's so special about South Africa? One wonders if we'll get to that here.
Now, the question that everybody who's watching this afternoon is concerned about is the ratings downgrade. Do the ratings agencies bother waiting till December under the current circumstances? Do we actually need them to do us a favour and downgrade us now? Get it over and done with.
No, I think they'll wait, Bruce. So the agencies like to see the numbers. Okay, so they typically don't respond very rapidly and aggressively to events like this. I guess what will worry them is, let's assume we get a good medium-term budget on the 26th.
Delivered by whomever.
Well, we assume still it will be Pravin Gordhan. But yes, the point is, will anyone believe those figures if you don't have faith in who's going to be there to administer it and get it through? So unfortunately, I think it does increase the probability of a downgrade. And just from our own house perspective, I've got to say again, it comes at very bad timing. Just last week, we'd taken off our call for a rating downgrade.
But that's
terrible timing.
No, but it was a perfectly reasonable decision to make, to say, as things stand, there is no real prospect of a ratings downgrade in December. We're pulling all the right levers, we're pushing all the right buttons, we're saying all the right things, we've got business and labour and government going on global road trips together, doing all the right things.
Yes.
In the absence of stupid. You introduce stupid into the equation, and then suddenly, Kantipai, anything is possible.
There's another test. I was speaking to a friend who works at the Treasury this morning. I said, look, what happens if a new guy walks into the Treasury today? Can he actually insert new lines on the spreadsheet of the budget? And she says, no, well, you can't do that. There's a whole committee, and if under no circumstances that committee...
that's fine. That new advisors. The last guy arrived with advisors.
Yeah. So hopefully that committee will be strong enough. It will be this kind of leadership, and they will say, no, no, no.
But John Keynes is about to say this is the erosion of the institution of the Treasury, aren't you?
Yeah, so Zanthi, I agree with you. It's too late to change the medium-term budget. I mean, it might already be at the print as well. Not quite literally, but almost, right? It's very late in the process. You don't suddenly start changing major numbers at this stage. But it's not just about the numbers they produce now. It's the years ahead. Do you have any? You have to have faith that they're going to continue with their tight fiscal policy that they're going to follow. And let's be clear about it. It's really tough policy. I mean, they've set a very ambitious targets that they're going to have to meet. It's not easy to meet those numbers, and I think that's what's going to be worrying investors, the rating agencies, etc.
So what would be the point of all this?
So what would be the point of it? This is the national, because you're so cynical about the independence of the National Prosecuting Authority, this is the National Prosecuting Authority doing its job. I don't believe myself either on this particular point. My producers have just spoken to Oupa Magashula. Oupa Magashula succeeded Pravin Gordhan as the SARS commissioner. He is also accused in this particular matter. He has told my producers that he, speaking for himself, very pleased with the fact that the charge is being brought, because it gives him an opportunity to exonerate himself in a court of law. But this is bigger than that.
Too late. So you get on the 2nd of November, you plead not guilty, it goes through the legal process, who knows how long that's going to take, and it's all secondary. The point is it's offers the opportunity for a change in the finance minister. What the legal implications are, or if you're guilty or not, is really secondary. And we would go back to where we started, a very minor charge that has been brought. But Santi, exactly as you say, what does it matter? That's not the point. It's the fig leaf to do the changes.
Lisiba, you touched on it a little earlier. We know that there was a very robust discussion between key figures in leadership in the ANC, key leadership in business, who were gathered at the union buildings on the weekend after 9/12, as they call it. What's the date today? It's a 10-10 or
10-11.
Getting too complicated. 10-11. There are going to be some very tough conversations happening behind closed doors as to what is going on. Up until recently, the National Executive Committee, about 60 members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC were supportive of President Jacob Zuma. Could that change? I know you're an economist. This is the realm of political analysis and massive speculation. One has to assume that in times of crisis, our history teaches us that good people do stand up and do get counted.
Correct. But we also just need to remember that he's still number one. He still has...
He's behaving like a number two.
He still has the authority to make decisions. I just hope that sanity prevails, because we don't want to continue on this uncertain path. If we have a Minister of Finance that's found wanting and a court of law will need to make that decision, let's move on, right? Install someone credible, make the country at the center of your decision making. Take all the personalities. We may have an affinity towards one party in this debate, but we ought to have South Africa in the center of all these decisions. Swift decision, make it count, and move away from the uncertainty.
I want to ask Bruce a question.
If you can trust the principal players to make a decision in the best interest of the country. So far, the track record suggests not. I ask the questions. This is terrifying.
I want to ask you. So, what are you saying? Number one did a number two? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying on
one is behaving like a number two. There we go. I've said it. And although the president has made it very clear that he doesn't interfere in the process of law, which is really good, he uses the legal means at his disposal, as he's entitled to do with the public protector, who has asked to see the president. The president has pushed back and said, "I'm entitled, in terms of the Public Protectors Act, and it's there in black and white, to challenge witnesses and to question witnesses if I am being, if I'm going to say things that are going to implicate me later on. I have a right to do so." It's now down to a battle of the lawyers, and Pravin Gordhan has said today that his lawyers will be making a formal statement later on today. This is without precedent. We sit at a really important moment in South Africa's political economic history.
One of the journalists asked, the national prosecutor, have you actually done this before? Are there cases where people have been prosecuted on the basis that they gave, in South Africa, as we all know, people get handshakes all the time and they get retirements. So has this happened before? He said, well, there are many things, we haven't seen this before, maybe. And so that's the kind of thing that we're facing, that, we are, on new ground.
And then, and let's assume that this sets a legal precedent. We've then got to go back to every settlement in the public service over the last 5 years and take a similar prosecutorial route. And as taxpayers, we should be happy with that, because a lot of money has been paid out in our names for bad appointments, dodgy appointments, or simply to keep people quiet over time.
Well, if it affirms the credibility of the institution, so be it. I do think whatever we're dealing with here, our institutions have a capacity to deal with it. A decision needs to be made, whether this is right or wrong. Clever lawyers need to sit down and bash it, and a verdict needs to be given. I just go back to my point that we must put South Africa in the center of these debates. We cannot continue with uncertainty, and tough decisions sometimes need to be made in order to prioritize the goodness of our country.
Kusela Sangoni from the African National Congress joins us. Kusela, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon on the special CNBC Africa Live broadcast. What is the ANC's position with regard to the charges being put against Pravin Gordhan, the Finance Minister?
Good afternoon, Bruce, and thank you so much for the invitation. Well, the African National Congress would have noted the summons that were issued to Minister Gordhan to appear on fraud charges. Now, the ANC, we are of the view that this matter is a very serious one, given the extremely detrimental effect it has had on our economy. We are hoping that today's announcement is a step towards bringing this matter to finality. We are urging Comrade Pravin Gordhan, as well as all others implicated in these issues, to fully cooperate with the National Prosecuting Authority. This will ensure that we resolve it sooner rather than later. But also we've welcomed the statement by the head of the NPA, Advocate Shaun Abrams, that there has been no political interference. And you know that this would have been important because of a number of conspiracy theories that have been flying around. For the stability of our economy, we are calling on all stakeholders or external parties to desist from making any public commentary that could further undermine this process.
A lot of people would find the suggestion that there's been absolutely no political interference laughable. Are you suggesting that there has, you as the ANC believe in your hearts, or in the heart of hearts, that there has been no political interference, that this case and this case alone is being prosecuted in the best interests of the country, when we have seen over the last 5 years a litany of similar transactions being done, pensioning people off, retiring people off, buying people off quietly for their silence, that this is truly an independent legal decision?
Bruce, we are skeptical about making any assumptions or presumptions in the absence of any evidence to the contrary. Now, when Advocate Shaun Abrams says that there has been no political interference in the prosecutorial decision, we would like that respected. And we say this because we have, as South Africans, we have full confidence in our judiciary. And where matters appear before it, we believe that they are the final arbiter in those cases. So it serves nobody really at this point to be speculating about possibilities of political interference until those are proven in a court of law. So for now, we're moving from a position that says that the NPA remains an independent body that has taken such a decision, and really we should allow those processes to unfold and the truth to be separated from what is fiction.
What is the ANC's position in terms of the finance minister's role, in terms of his job? Should he step aside from his job? Should somebody else step into the role of finance minister until this entire matter is resolved?
Well, you will know that the African National Congress does not appoint members of cabinet. So that decision is not for the ANC to make. What I can say is that obviously the ANC would discuss this in light of our resolution, which compels all members of the ANC to ensure that they continue to uphold the integrity of the organization, and where there are any allegations of improper conduct, they act in a manner which does not impugn the reputation of the ANC. So I have no doubt that this matter will come before the ANC to consider it. But as far as cabinet appointments goes, that is the prerogative of the president.
On that basis, though, of somebody bringing the reputation of the ANC into disrepute, the president has 783 corruption charges outstanding against him. At what point do we expect that same level of attention that's been paid to the finance minister over the last year to be paid to the president as well?
Which I'm sure you will accept that a decision to prosecute is within the realm of the National Prosecuting Authority. But let's also accept that as much as we said we respect the judiciary, we should be able to respect the processes of law enforcement as well. Now, the presidency issued a statement last week where he indicated that he has petitioned the Supreme Court of Appeal in relation to the charges that may be brought against him by the National Prosecuting Authority. So we are not being inconsistent. In fact, we're very consistent where we're saying, let's allow the process of the law to unfold. And at that point, everybody who should have a day in court must do so. And that's the reason why we're calling on Comrade Pravin and others to be able to fully cooperate with the National Prosecuting Authority.
As you would expect the president to do as well.
I have no doubt. The principle and linked to that is the principle of innocence until proven guilty. Let's not persecute people in the court of public opinion. We do have stringent laws in this country. We have reputable institutions that have brought people to book when necessary, and I'm sure that those processes should be allowed to take their course. We cannot sit and prejudge any situation. Let's allow people to utilize the avenues that are open to them and the courts to be the final arbiter.
There we go. That is the word from Kusela Sangoni. Thanks very much, spokesperson for the African National Congress. Let's wrap up this special edition of the MoneyMakers in the middle of the day here on CNBC Africa with some final thoughts on this. Let's go to you, Kanti Pai, first. Just give me some thoughts. Where is your head at this very moment on a pivotal day in South Africa's social, political and economic history?
I think we haven't seen the worst.
I agree. Terrifying.
And I think that, it'd be wonderful to feel positive, to think, all of these things. But we are built to speculate, right? Because a part of the situation that we are facing, that there's no such thing as a court of law that proves, underhanded dealings, because that never comes to evidence in a court of law. So we can't sit here and say, well, actually, until it's proven, because that's not going to happen. But the biggest worry, of course, is what happens tomorrow and the day after and the day after. And I have a feeling we have really, really coming up some hard times.
Lisiba, your thoughts? Let's wrap up.
Good counsel suggests that you should not cash falling knives, which this will prove to be. Rather, move on to other things and plug the hole, and let's move on as a country. If there are machinations and disagreements that are detrimental to a country, we need to let that happen in the court of law, or we need to plug the hole in institutions of highest quality and world standards to be maintained, and we continue as a country which is investment grade.
There we go. Investment grade. Absolutely perfect. John Cairns, last word to you.
So a further negative shock to the economy, just like finally it looked like we had some green shoots. The markets are not taking this well. I think we're going to be in for another few weeks of huge uncertainty once again. Puts all the markets on the back foot for the moment.
Gentlemen, thank you very much, and thanks very much for coming through at such short notice on an important day in South Africa's history. My guest, Lisiba Motata, who is the Chief Economist at Investment Solutions, Kati Pai, who's economist at Nascents Advisory and Research, and RMB currency strategist John Cairns. As we wrap up, I think it's important that we see every nuance and every bit of attitude of a man who's under a considerable amount of pressure right now. The Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, speaking at a Gauteng government event earlier today, maintaining his composure, maintaining his sense of decency, maintaining his sense of humour under extraordinary odds. Thank you so much for watching this special edition. Back again. Good night.
There's been news spreading around that this entity called the Hawks are at it again. So I want you first to know from me what I know of, the little that I know about events this morning. Firstly, I get a call from my family to say that a Brigadier Kaba, uninvited, has appeared at my house to hand me summons. They know who my lawyer is. That firm of attorney has been interacting with them for months now. And one of the undertakings they gave is that when and if this day comes, they will approach the lawyer and make the necessary arrangements for me to receive any summons that they wish to receive. Not having found me at home, they proceed to go to the Treasury. And I'm not sure what has happened there. Given fiscal austerity, they might not have been given a cup of tea. My lawyers will issue a proper statement in a short while. But ladies and gentlemen, you and the public need to once again ask yourselves, what is this matter that is so urgent? And I'll tell you what it is. That requires us as a country 15 days before the delivery of the medium-term budget policy statement. So you remember the last time it was just before and after the February budget. There's something attractive about budgets. I'm not sure what it is. So what is it about this country and some in this country, both at a political level and in the law enforcement agencies, who choose these times to do these things? When we've just come back telling all sorts of people, we're fine in South Africa. Yes, no, we have, gloomy growth, but we can see green shoots. We can see the economy growing. And our message to all sorts of investors and people who want to assess our economic performance and fiscal performance is that if you give us another year or so, we'll show you South Africa can change, South Africa can adapt, South Africa can produce results which will not require anybody to consider putting us into so-called junk territory, something that will benefit all South Africans, not just a few. So I expect I will be, at some stage, handed a summons to appear in court on, I believe, on the 2nd of November. A date has been set to collect my fingerprints. They've been in the system for a long time. I suppose they need to freshen it up in some way. But this is a moment when South Africans should really ask themselves, who are the hawks, or these few people in the hawks, really serving? Where do they get their political instructions from, and for what purpose? When all that we are trying to do within the Treasury is represent South Africa, make sure we manage its finances properly, present the best foot forward that we can on behalf of the country, and do that which is right, whether it is in respect of university fees, or more housing to be built, or more money to be made available for the right kind of procurement purposes, or anything that a normal treasury does in any normal country. So, looks like we're in for a bit of excitement as we go forward.